I don't need this, right?
No.
Welcome to the new writing series. I'm so excited to see what everyone looks like in the dark. And this is going to be an amazing, as you know, reading. We have two artists and scholars and brilliant women here tonight to read and perform for you. Corinne Goria and Liminal Moyes. And to introduce Corinne is grad student Gabe.
Thanks a lot. This is a great crowd. When thinking about the effects that a globalized workforce has had on individual laborers, it's easy to take one of two routes, both of which can be problematic. The first is ignorance, oftentimes fueled by fatigue. It's too exhausting to imagine where our shoes are made, where bananas are grown, where oil is pumped, and there is the false belief, perpetuated by manufacturers and companies making goods, that making goods in a humane manner that respects the humanity and value of labor would lead to unaffordable products. So, while labor abuses are tragic, what can we do? The other strategy is just as problematic, viewing workers as entirely lacking agency, desperately pleading for the benevolent intervention at the hands of educated, hegemonic Westerners to rescue them from cycles of abuse. Corinne Goria's thoughtful, wide-ranging, and vital collection of interviews, Invisible Hands, Voices from the Local Economy, aims to rouse the idle and challenge the paternalistic into real thought about the people involved in the products we consume. Like another famous interviewer and social critic, Studs Terkel, it's entirely possible for Goria's voice and presence to fade into the background of these interviews. There are no questions present, not many editorial comments, just simple and movingly presented narratives. This strategy works to empower the storytellers and let their narratives progress unencumbered and their words exist as theirs alone. This isn't to say that the writing in Invisible Hands isn't compelling, because it most certainly is, but its aim is always to educate and provoke readers, as opposed to turning these stories into aesthetic objects. The people who populate these stories are struggling but determined, taken advantage of but maintaining hope, stuck in systems that have stripped them of their dignity and agency, but through their narratives able to recapture at least some power. The story of Purnima Akolkar, I'm sorry, I butchered that, which begins with a brief summary about the shocking number of Indian farmers who kill themselves, 1 in 4, according to statistics in the book, recounts the tragedy that she faced when her husband, saddled with debt from bank loans due to unproductive crop years, kills himself, but additionally, the hope she has for her children's education. This mix of the challenging and the hopeful pervades the text. And Goria's focus is as much on the local. She was one of the editors of the diverse, really important East County San Diego literary collection, The Far East, Everything Just As It Is. So thank you for that. It's one of the texts which has informed and challenged my impression of and writing about the San Diego area. Goria's work is not strictly about curation and promoting others' voices. She is also a writer whose work has been presented at conferences and readings across the country. And I think you can hear a mix of original pieces by her as well as some of the pieces from the manuscripts she has edited. Corinne Goria is a writer and lawyer based in America's finest city, San Diego. Her fiction has appeared in The Silent History, in the AWP Conference, the And Now Festival, the San Diego Writers Anthology, and many other publications. She's the assistant editor of Underground America, Narratives of Undocumented Lives, a collection of oral histories from undocumented immigrants, and her book Invisible Hands, Voices from the Global Economy, was published in 2014 and is currently, thankfully, being taught in colleges and universities throughout the United States. Please join me in welcoming Corinne Goria.
Wow, I feel very honored to have that introduction. And I feel honored to be here. Thank you all for coming. I was going to start with something that is not in this book, actually. It was going to have some visuals. Is it possible to have the screen come down? So this is maybe a instruction you don't usually hear, but to make sure that your cell phones are turned on, because this project that I was involved with, The Silent History, it is a serialized novel that was created specifically for a mobile phone reader. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of that already. he'll come up here in a second. I was very lucky to be a part of this. It was Eli Horowitz and a couple other people from McSweeney's who broke off and decided to create some new digital narratives, and this was one of them. And the idea was not to get you, the reader, even more engrossed in your phone. It was actually to bring you out of your phone and into the physical space that you were inhabiting. And so the way that they were trying to do this was they created a general narrative, and then they hired, in a way, field reporters like myself to go out into our cities and to find nooks and crannies that seemed interesting and to write an episode of, thank you, this is not the history, but so this is what, this is a little bit of what it looks like. That's New York. I'm going to try to show you what San Diego. Sorry for the delay. So you can see there's reports from all over the United States, and then we get a little bit closer to San Diego, and you will be able to, should you choose, to go in a little bit closer into the map, and you can see exactly where in the city there are reports coming up. I did some reports in San Diego and also in Chicago and in Italy, and it was a really fascinating experience. So I'm going to read something from the silent history, and just as a very quick sum up of the narrative that they were building. What takes place in the next few years is an epidemic of children who are being born silent, without any type of language whatsoever. And doctors are stymied, and parents are also confused and searching for answers. And that's all I need. This is this story is triggered when you're walking through the O'Hare Airport in Chicago. I was taking us to Reno. I was done with the city. Adelaide was already starting to pull herself up on chair legs and my legs, and Jerry still didn't want to have anything to do with us. I can barely take care of myself, Al. Bastard. I mean, how can you not pull it together to at least see your baby? I don't care if you've got daddy issues or whatever. Just come hang out with your daughter for 2 hours. Doesn't take a fucking law degree. My cousin Brooke is a dealer out at the Rio Plata Casino, and she said I could be a cocktail waitress there. No problem, on account of my experience at Giordano's and because I had a good body. I told her since the baby I had a gut that I'd never had before. Adelaide's twins still up in there, making me forever fat. She said that that didn't matter, because the way the uniform is made, the customer's eye is drawn to the legs and the tits. Just don't tell them about your DUI, she said. If you don't tell them, they won't find out because it's in a different state, and they only do a state background check. I probably shouldn't tell you that. But whatever, I obviously didn't end up going to Reno. I packed up all our stuff and got a ride from Darius, my sister's boyfriend, who has a car. Darius and Ray dropped me off. They were all high, but I didn't care. I was so ready to get the hell out of here. I even texted Jerry after I'd gotten my boarding pass to tell him he lost his chance. You'll never get to meet Adelaide now. Good luck with your sad stand-up routine. Adelaide was rolling around at my feet while we waited at the gate. She kept pulling at a loose string coming out of the blue and gray carpet. I pulled her up on my lap to give her a bottle, and as she began to eat, I watched the CNN 3D flashing on the seats in front of me. I remember I was thinking about how I was going to go on that lemon juice diet starting tomorrow, so I'd look good in that uniform. Then this older lady came and sat down next to me and started to fan herself. She looked at me and at Adelaide and smiled. She asked the usual stuff. How old is she? What's her name? Having a baby in your arms is like having foot-long cleavage. Everybody wants to talk to you. Adelaide pushed the bottle aside, and I lifted her up to let her stand on my thighs. And the lady was smiling and waving at her. My baby's always been the shy type. She's not like some babies that are smiling and babbling all the time. She's reserved. But then something happened as this lady was watching Adelaide. She suddenly frowned and made a noise with her mouth, and I saw her shake her head. She said, would you mind if I prayed for your baby? My neighbor has a silent too. Same age, 9 months, just a little thing. And I pray for him every night. I would like to pray for your little Adelaide, if that's all right with you. I was shocked. I mean, fucking flabbergasted. Adelaide was not silent. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. It felt like she just punched me in the stomach. Maybe I'd had doubts the whole time about why Adelaide was so shy, but who the fuck would come up to you and just say something like that? Actually, I said, we don't need you pushing your Bible bullshit today, thanks. Try selling it somewhere else. And I moved Adelaide to the other side of the seat and turned my back to the lady so she couldn't see me. I was so mad I couldn't see straight. Some stranger tells you your kid's got a serious problem, what do you expect? My whole world was crashing down. I couldn't stop crying even though people were looking at me. The voice on the microphone said there were now boarding rows 1 through 12, all special needs passengers and those traveling with children. But I didn't get up. I kept bouncing Adelaide on my lap, but I'd started looking at her and my stomach was sinking. I saw she was I just started to panic. I left the airport. Didn't even try to get our bags back. I just walked all the way back through the terminals, past the baggage claim and outside. I took the L to my dad's. His girlfriend's a nurse, so I guess I wanted a medical opinion. She went through a couple basic tests on Adelaide and, well, then we went to the doctor. And yeah, that day at the airport, that was pretty much the worst day of my life. The whole time I was on the L, I just prayed to God, please let her be okay. Over and over, God, please just let her be okay. This is one more. This is from San Diego. It's still following the same master narrative, but it's different person, different voice. And this takes place 2 years forward from the last one. I have 2 daughters. One is silent, Mirabel. She's 8 years old. The other is 10 years old, and she's not silent. Mirabel is silent, but she's always loved to eat. That's how I know she's happy. When she takes her first bite, her whole face relaxes, like she's been waiting for that moment the whole day. You have to look for signs when you have a silent child. You have to look deeper. My husband and I left Hermosillo because there's a lot of discrimination against silent children there. Kids at school were mean to Mirabel. They stole her lunch, and one time she came home in only her underwear because the kids stole all her clothes, even her shoes. The teachers are even worse. One of them was saying he was going to teach our daughter how to talk. But our other daughter, Anna, saw him take Mirabel into the teacher's bathroom. We were blessed with Anna because she knew something wasn't right. She said she started knocking on the door and said, "Sorry, teacher, Mirabel has to go home now. We have an emergency at home." And the teacher wouldn't unlock the door, but Anna kept knocking, and finally the teacher came out. He looked red, Anna said, and Mirabel was crying. She didn't stop crying until they stopped for candy at Abarotes, Anna said. Things got worse and worse from there. She came home with bruises. She stopped smiling. For a month we didn't see her smile, and no one wanted to help us. So we decided to come to California. We heard it was better here for special children, that they had more protection here. Doctors are better here. They even said there was a cure here for silence, that they didn't have in Mexico. We wanted Mirabel to have everything possible. We wanted her to have a better life than in Hermosillo. And it was better here for a while, yes, it was better. But in September, my husband got caught walking home from work. They got him right outside of our house, and they came inside, and they took all of us. They woke us all up and took us like that in our nightgowns to their office downtown. It was a building I'd walked by many times, but I never knew that was where you go if you're about to be deported. There aren't any signs or anything. Inside it was just like a jail, but there were no signs on the walls. There wasn't even a phone. I was just confused about what was happening. Only one of the agents spoke in Spanish, but he didn't translate everything, I could tell. He said, "Well, you all have to go back. You got caught. There might be a way for your daughter to stay here. They're doing research and they need silent kids. She could have better doctors here. It might be the better thing to do." And then he went back to checking his cell phone. They were already leading my husband outside to the bus, and it was me and my daughter next. And the agent said, "Let's go, sign here, or she can go back with you if you want." So that's history from the court on your mobile devices if you're interested. I believe they're still accepting field reports, so for writers, if you're interested, you can contact them and go to a spot in San Diego or anywhere else if you have an idea sort of how to integrate your location with the narrative at large, and they'll incorporate it. And since we're at UCSD, I have the pleasure to work on a very different project for the And Now Festival a few years ago. And it was actually with one of the same people who was involved with the silent history. I'm gonna bring this up here. Not a good idea. Never mind, I'll do that again.
Here. I'm gonna pass. Now you can move right here.
So, if you'll notice, it looks a little familiar, probably. Sort of a rip-off of the New York Times. And that was intentional. We were trying to throw some doubt on the absoluteness of the New York Times and of news in general. And see what fiction would look like when it's placed in the format of news. And then we also played a little bit more, and I'll just click through, but I'd like to read those little parts here. Green almonds and the Americans. Uncle Fayyad orders me to fetch his slippers. He slides his hand to the curved wood of dead Tata's chair arm and closes fingers around it, spider-like. I don't want to. Layla. She took the glass my father held out to her, weighed it in her palm. He's folding sheets of bread in his mouth and not looking at his brother, not looking at me or at her, but at the framed photo of his mother sitting on a shiny garbage can in Queens, Duke Ellington screaming on the stereo. Then she leaves for the kitchen. Uncle Fayyad's eyes were clasped on mine. Dad brought his other wife. She ate all the marzipan, her pink nails clicking while my sister and I played tennis. There was a studio, and there was the windowless bodega where orange dusk light eddied in air thick with powder, before revealing a red clay water jug, a glazed dish, a sparrow walking between them. I went to school anyway. The hall was dark with the extinguished offices of professors who'd fled, and the students were few. One waits for me though, Quad, wealthy and nearly failing. I unlocked the door and seemed more in a hurry than I actually was. I nodded at the folding wooden chair near the door and set my purse on the desk. You want the grade. I understand. But I cannot help you. I started strong. In the midst of this war, whatever this was, history was more important than ever, I said. Only the players have changed, I said. I can't with any integrity let you pass without having done the work. I gathered papers and noticed the varnish now peeling in thin, translucent strips from this weak desk, and remembered rubbing my fingers on my sister's burnt and bubbled back in the dark bedroom in Bamdoon. One or several summers ago, peeling the wet brown skin from the pink flesh glowing beneath. I know my country's history. I will graduate this year. His hair was in a glossy mold, a good-looking boy with a sprinkling of black stubble around his mouth, but his cheeks were hairless and flushed. Well, you just told me you didn't even finish the essay that is due in I looked at my watch to make a show. I knew and he knew we had only a few minutes before class, and we both knew he was done for. But time, an indifferent neutral arbiter, could provide cover. 10 minutes, I doubt you'll be able to pass at this point. He put his hand in the backpack that lay across his lap. Stiff palm leaves outside the window rustled, suits shoving to get on a train. The morning was humid and vicious, with the loud cheers from the walk still echoing in my ears. They'd hit the building, a loud crashing and then the cheers. Shouts shuddered the air close by, and farther off smothered the silence like cicadas. I continued to fill the time, and shots continued as well, and my voice matched the cadence of the loud clicking. Think about your motivation for attending school. Just to graduate? To get a diploma so that you may look big before your friends? Or to learn something that will actually benefit you, that may in fact actually and substantially benefit this country? But no point in saying it, as the fact of saying would dissipate the word's meaning, or worse, deepen the chasm between my meaning and his. The shots became closer, a flutter, and yet I could see he was listening, his eyes on me, but picturing himself in his living room, his father perhaps, I did not know his family, saying the same to him with his fist on the table, his eyes in a rage, desperate as any father's before a son assuming control of the world he used to own. I myself shouted over the shots to match the passion I imagined his father's voice having inside his own head. You will not walk out of here with an empty diploma, my son. My son was his mistake, not mine, not remotely. His eyes flashed wide. He returned from his father's ornately carpeted study, I imagined, with its gold-embossed books on shelves, with its map on the wall, with the milky smell of lamb's meat entering from beneath the door and mitigating the lecture, or rendered sour by it. He was here again, in my gray metal office, with a cheap wooden desk they dragged from the basement when I was hired. We were here, and I was watching as he pulled a black metal pistol from his backpack and laid it on his lap, and the sun broke through the window now. It must have been 8:50 then, because that was, in those final days of the semester, my cue to head off to lecture hall and begin class. The warm yellow sun landed on my desk, and his hand, and the black gun, beautifying all. I said nothing. I'm graduating this semester. You need to give me a good grade, and that's it. My tongue leapt on its own, not minding the heavy limping of my chest then, or the sweat that began to run down the side of my face where the strong yellow sun was melting it. I'll do nothing for your grade. You've determined it yourself, little one. I omitted the final diminutive. I could be your mother. He shook his head and smiled and got up from his chair. I remained seated. There's a few more lines that I can't find on my computer, and I might have them in my paper, but I also might just leave you. Let me see. Sorry. It is a website you can access. It's called fromthenonfire.com. And there's one thing I should tell you about this if you do go to it. When you get towards the end, the words start to fall out as you're sliding it down. And I'd like to read a bit with the words still there and a bit with the words falling out. Fayad said, "Go ahead." White balls of yogurt lay in thick yellow oil in the ceramic bowl my mother brought from Drew's Potter's one day. I look to her and she walks to the stove. She wedges a knife in the peel of the soft felted almonds Father had brought home in a basket tied with an ivy vine. I see Father. He doesn't have the hard look. His eyes are wrapped around Fayad. Now he looks at his glass. Now he looks at me over the glass, eyes half-hooded, his lashes long and feathery. Crickets throb quietly under the shouts of kids in the street. Maybe Khalil is outside. I wish Khalil was outside. I wish I was outside. Unable to find the switch, I pat the cold floor like the shoulders of an old friend. I pat the rug under the bed. The thick braided satin drapes and some stale odor without texture is released in response. The smell of shuttered in age. Downstairs, the almonds begin to smoke in oil, and father shouts something. Mother responds. Thoughts of Fayyad, the cool of the marble mist from the floor. Fayyad came into the room once when she was in the middle of explaining to Khalil how you make a slingshot. What are you two up to? Nothing. She put the forked stick behind her back. Oh, nothing, huh? I have to go to the bathroom. Khalil ran out the door. Dumb Khalil. Nothing, huh? Not really. Well, you know, you're at the age where you two probably shouldn't be up here alone. Boys aren't allowed to be alone in a room with girls in this house. Why, you want to know? There, this is it. The gaping leather mouths are lined with matted lamb's wool. I stick my fists inside. If there's time, I'll read from Invisible Hands. 5 minutes. The words do come back. But you have to go to the bottom. This was made with Russell Quinn, who's a very brilliant programmer. So there's a little bit of time I'd like to read from Invisible Hands. Thank you so much again for that introduction. I really appreciate it. The book was a project that we worked on for about 4 years. So it was a very long project. And it's difficult to describe still, even now, because there's breadth. But I think you did a really great job. Thank you. I'm going to read from Neftali Cuello's narrative. She is a 17-year-old high school student. She was born in Los Angeles, but she moved to King Hill, North Carolina when she was a child. And the last couple of summers she has worked in the tobacco fields in North Carolina. And I think she has a really interesting story. People say that it's dead in King Hill because nothing goes on here. But it's not dead, it's just peaceful. People don't really notice the beauty of nature. I live in a trailer park, and outside my house I'm surrounded by fields. From the trailer park you can drive 3 minutes and be in the town.